I'm with Yvette Cooper from Labour. Yvette, we have over 500 questions here from job seekers on read.co.uk. We've chosen 5 that are representative, and we have around 5 minutes for you to answer them. So I'll get straight in with the first. Abu from London asks, how do you intend to get young people back to work?
I think this is really important because young people have been most heavily affected by the global recession. And although unemployment overall is about 500,000 lower than we all expected this time last year, because of all the support that we've put in, all the help to get people back to work, it is still quite tough for a lot of young people. And so what we've been doing is providing extra support through things like the Future Jobs Fund. That's providing over 150,000 really good, interesting jobs for young people who've been out of work maybe 6 months or more. It is something that sadly the Conservatives have said they'll axe, but we think it's really important. And to do that as part of guaranteeing every young person who's out of work for more than 6 months either a job, training, work placement, a proper guarantee of work and support so that we never again have the kind of lost generation that I think we had in the 80s and 90s, and I don't think was fair on young people but also on the whole economy as well.
Second question, Jeff from Blackpool asks, how can you stop the influx of foreign workers that are taking jobs away from UK citizens?
Well, around 9 out of 10, in fact over 9 out of 10 people who are working in Britain are British nationals. And we have also introduced this Australian points-based system. And what that does is look at people's skills and says, well, OK, if people have got very high skills that we don't have in Britain, well, then there may be a case for people to come from outside Europe into the country. But actually, what we should be doing is making sure that anywhere where you've got people who've got British workers who've got those skills, they should be able to go for the jobs first. And I think that's really important. That's already helped to bring the level of net migration down and is also helping people who are looking for jobs be able to get work, especially when they've got the skills to do those jobs.
Douglas from Milton Keynes asks, all I hear about is help for youth. What about the older worker who's been hit by redundancies?
Well, that's right. I mean, what we try to do is to provide help for everybody. So from the very first day that you lose your job or you walk into the job centre, you should be able to get help and support and advice and intensive support with training if you need it, but to give people more help the longer that they've been unemployed. I think the most important thing, actually, for all workers is that we keep up the support for the economy, because we've seen some of the first drops in the number of people claiming unemployment benefit. That's been really welcome. Whereas in the 80s and 90s, we saw unemployment go up actually for years after the recession finished. But we're not through the woods yet. And that's why I think it's so important to keep up the overall support for the economy, not cut £6 billion out of the economy. That was the Conservatives' proposal. I think that would be really, really bad for jobs. That would put a whole series of jobs right across the country at risk. So we've got to keep up that support. And then particularly for older workers, we've just introduced an extra £10 million of extra support for older people to get maybe specialist advice, maybe early access to help, because although around half of older workers are still finding a job and something to go to before they reach 6 months of unemployment, you can find people can get stuck on the dole for longer and find it harder to get back into work, maybe because of age discrimination by employers, maybe because of different pressures. So we want to make sure there's that extra help, particularly for people who are over 50, particularly for people who might otherwise be thought of approaching retirement, but actually they want to get back to work, they want to be able to find a job.
Becky from Cardiff asks, what will you do to support the upskilling and training of the UK workforce to help us compete on the world stage?
Well, I think it's important that it's not just about helping people get back into a job, it's actually about helping people get a career. It's about people getting a first step on the career ladder, being able to improve, to get promoted once you get back into a job. So I think getting skills and training is really important. We've increased the number of people who are in full-time education by around 200,000. A lot of people getting extra help, education and support at a difficult time in the economy. That's important. But you've also got to give people the chance to get skills when they're in work. And that's why I think it's important not to cut back on the train to gain budget. I think that's helped 1.5 million people get skills, and while they're in work, that's really important, get new qualifications. We also want to keep increasing the number of apprenticeships, the number of people who are getting the kind of technician level skills. If you think back, maybe 10, 15 years, apprenticeships were pretty much dead. Actually, we've brought them back, but we want to keep expanding them. They're a really important part of building skills in Britain for the new high-skilled economy of the future.
And Chris from Birmingham asks, what can the UK government do to help support small and medium-sized businesses with the aim of building growth in the UK economy and reducing unemployment?
Well, small business is really important, both to the growth and getting the economy moving, but also taking people on, expanding the employment. A lot of small businesses may be taking on their first employee. That's often the way that you see a lot of employment growth right across the economy. So we want to, first of all, just help as many people as possible set up their own businesses. And there is a new help through job centres. People who are thinking about setting up their own business should ask at the job centre what help, additional support might be available to them. We want to encourage more people to do that, but also wider measures through cutting business rates for small businesses for a year to give them a boost, but also giving small businesses more time to pay their taxes through the Time to Pay scheme, and other ways of being able to help small businesses get loans and get support from banks, and setting up a new independent adjudicator, because a lot of small businesses have had a tough time from the banks. That's not really fair. We want to make sure that there's somebody independent who can actually stick up for the small businesses and make sure they're getting a fair deal.
And finally, a question from me. What do you feel uniquely equips you to be our next Secretary of State for Work and Pensions?
Well, I think we've got to support jobs across the economy. We've done a lot during the recession to help support jobs, protect jobs and get people back into work. And that's helped keep unemployment about half the level that we saw in the 80s and 90s, even despite the scale of the global recession. But we've got to keep up that support. If we'd listened to the Conservatives, then we wouldn't have provided half the level of support. We wouldn't have put in the £5 billion extra investment in helping the unemployed back to work. We wouldn't have set up things like the Future Jobs Fund, which I think are really important. But we want to carry on with those things. The Liberal Democrats have actually said very little about helping jobs and supporting the unemployed, and some of their proposals aren't as strong as ours. I just think we've got to keep helping people. You cannot abandon people. You cannot turn your backs on people who have lost their jobs, who are looking for work. I think it's government's role to help people. Some people say we can't afford to, and I just think we can't afford not to, because otherwise we keep paying the bills of unemployment and of problems in communities across the country for many decades to come. We want to back people and help them into jobs.
Yvette Cooper, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.